Hello YouTube, I'm PC. Today I'm making another video for you guys. Today's video is going to be showcasing my Rubik's Cube game. Yeah, I guess you can call it a game. A simulator, I guess, maybe more accurate term for it. But I'm planning on making a trailer video for this, kind of just showing you all the features. This is more of a developer diary. Well, I'm going to start by showing you the features, but after that I'm going to go into the code and show you the behind the scenes stuff and show you what I'm proud of, and also maybe give you an idea of how you could go about making a program like this, or maybe you can get an idea for organization of bigger projects like this. So I did this for a school project, and one part of it was to do a presentation talking about it. So since I already have a presentation for it, I might as well just show you that. So I'm APC. This is my Risky project. So this is the design of it. It has 3 faces. A lot of kids in my class did it with 1 face. So the 3 faces is a little different, and with my isometric design makes it easier to control it. Okay, this is how the user interface is. These are all these arrows, different actions that the user can do. So you can see how each of them corresponds with a different twist direction, and it's not all cluttered like this in the game. These arrows are only visible when you mouse over them, and you see all these lines. These lines represent rotation, so they show which axis you're rotating around. So, in addition to the basic manipulations, one of the requirements for it was to add a couple of the extra features like scramble and reset, and those are the two required ones. I added a couple more, but scramble and reset were required. The way I had it laid out was I had all those extra features in a separate area, because by having all the manipulations kind of taken care of on this panel, it made the whole process a lot easier, because it just becomes a whole lot less cluttered. So yeah, base manipulations here, and you can even click the toggle setting to take away all that, because I went for a little minimalist approach. So if you so wished, you could take away all these buttons and only have the Rubik's Cube. But then, of course, if you're in advanced use and you want more, you can add more to this. This panel is dynamic, which is one of the things I'm proud of. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So you can add more to it just from the program. You don't have to modify the code at all. So you can see some of the extra features I add was move counter, a timer, scramble reset, and undo button. Okay, and then comes the demo, and after that's questions, and then that's all for this PowerPoint. So now is the demo. Here's my program. So the features you want to do are visible. You click to apply them, and you can see how that works nicely. This is how the rotation works. You mouse over here and you can show what direction you want to rotate in, and that's how you rotate it. It looks a little bit choppy with just changing it directly, but I did not want to go through the work of figuring out how to make this animated. That would have been a pain. There was one kid in our class who made a full 3D model of this, and he did that using Java 3D, and that seems like a cool plugin if you guys want to check it out. I'll have to check it out and make a tutorial about it or something. So yeah, that's how you can add the manipulations, and I think that's fairly intuitive, which is my goal. Okay, and then you can mouse over here to do other stuff. So scramble, reset, and then and then if you want more, okay, well, there's toggle settings, and you can get it back with space. So now you only have this visible. And then if you want more, you click options, and you can select what you want, or you can unselect other things you don't want. Maybe you want to get rid of the reset, maybe you want to go just purely without being able to reset it, actions that you can only do on your own. Then you hit confirm, you close out this window, and you have the more options here. So as you can see, it counts the moves, and I didn't get a chance to say this in class, even though I really wanted to, but with the move counter, I didn't just do it every time you did an action, it recorded your move. When you rotate it, for instance, it doesn't do anything. But another thing is, if I'm like rotating one, I move it once and it counts the move. The second time it doesn't count it, because in Rubik's Cube tournaments, where they count how many moves you can do it, like how many moves it takes you, they count a move as a 1 turn or a semi-turn. Okay, so the 3rd time it's basically a turn in the other direction, and the 4th time you see it goes down because you didn't do anything, you just did a full turn. So I'm proud of that. Okay, and then timer starts as soon as you scramble it. So, okay, that scared me for a second. So yeah, that works. And then you have the undo button, which was a tricky feature for a lot of kids in the class because you have to use a stack, which is something we didn't actually learn about. Stack is a data type similar to arrays. Only the way it works is you add stuff to it. Oh, well, first off, you add stuff to it. So now I'm adding stuff to the stack, and then when you hit undo, you want to pop out the most recent action. So it works different from arrays, and it'll be very difficult to do if you didn't know about stacks. So stacks, you can pop out the most recent action, and it works that way. And then, of course, you can toggle back and forth. And that's basically everything in this program. There are a couple things that only the developer will notice, such as I make it dynamically resize. I'm pretty proud of that. I think it's... just want to throw that out there because nobody will notice it if I don't tell them. Yeah, I was really proud of how this panel managed to dynamically work. And that's all for this showing it. Now let's go into the code. So I should have had this pre-resized. Okay. There we go. Okay, here is my code. I'm going to try and decrease the font size real quick so that we can have a better look at it. Zoom. Oh, I just that way. Control minus. Better. Alright then. So, these are all the classes that I used. So you have Rubiks Cube Java, which is the main class where it starts from. I made it as a standard swing application. You can make a class organized in the same way. If you follow some of my swing tutorials that I'm making on my other channels and Forge tutorials. So I import a bunch of stuff, don't let that scare you. You know, JPanel, I always have a basic JPanel. Border layout is a type of layout, is a way to, layouts are a way to organize your components, and border layout is a specific type, which worked out nicely in this case. I'm actually making a tutorial with border layout. I'm editing it now. It should be up tomorrow, maybe the day after that, if you're interested in learning about that. SynForge tutorials. Okay, so if we go back to our program, you can kind of see how this is a panel, or I have the main panel, and then I have two sections on the other side, and you can kind of see how have that organized. And then on the right side, just doing a bunch of buttons. And you can do it using a grid layout, which I think is what I used, which I made a tutorial about that already, if you are interested, of course. And, okay, so yeah. So I added two panels, that's all I did. I just made them slightly more complex panels. See, I created two new panels, and then later on, when I go through all of my standard swing stuff, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, in here. No, not in there. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. So yeah, now set resizable, set default close operation, size, location, and then I created new instances of the panel, and then I added the panels, and then I added the big panel, and I set this visible. Same standard swing stuff. Okay. Rubiks Cube panel. So this was so in here I created two panels, the settings in the Rubiks Cube. And let me just go over how I have that organized before we get too far into it. So here's a little diagram of how it organized. Rubiks Cube is the main class, it has the main method. Rubiks Cube panel is the left-hand panel that shows the Rubiks Cube. Settings panel is the one on the right that has all the settings and buttons and all that. And then Rubiks Cube panel will then create cube and game UI. Game UI handles all the logic of the, well, it listens for actions from the user, so it handles all of the manipulations. Like it'll keep track of the buttons, and then when you click, it'll tell the cube to perform those actions. So say if the user clicks this, tell the cube to twist in that direction. If the user clicks this, tell the cube to rotate like that. That's basically Game UI's job. And cube keeps track of all the Rubiks Cube logic. So it has a twist method, and keeps track of where everything is on the Rubiks Cube. And that was a tricky class right there. It also keeps track of how it's drawn, which isn't too big of a deal. Okay, and then over here, settings panel. Settings panel, like I said, it's fairly straightforward, just a bunch of buttons using a grid layout. There are two things I used by the buttons. On the timer, I had to make a separate thread to set that up, and then options pops up another window to take care of that. Okay. Alright, so back to this. That's basically everything that's notable in my main class. We have to have a feature where it will print a file with all of the actions by the user, so that if we were doing this for a company, they could monitor, they could analyze how they used it or something like that. So that's what a lot of this stuff is with the Japs and panes in the beginning, and I have this method here for printing stuff out, and another one for printing stuff out, and that just makes the whole thing a little more complicated. I had to set the time of each action, so I use this calendar, Gregorian calendar. You can read up on using that if you want. I'm not interested. I didn't find that too interesting, so I'm not talking about it. Okay, so here's the panel. Let's see. I actually set this up as a applet at first, which would make it more easier to integrate online, and that's how I made my iRevolver. I made using an applet. Usually when we make games, you use applets to do that, but I made I figured a way to make sort of a combination of that. So I have run method just like would have my applet to keep track of updating the mouse actions and all that, and I use a thread to do that. And then only real difference is here in the paint. Instead of saying paint, you say paint component, which you can use in Swing. I guess it's just panels, and I guess you can do it in JFrame as well. So I think a lot of Swing components, they have the paint component thing, which is where you can add stuff. Somebody messaged me asking me how to add a background to the chatbot, to my chatbot tutorial. And you don't have to go through and make it a big complex program to have to add a background. You can just do this paint component thing. And this is buffering, not much fun there. What else? Update position, that's involved with the dynamic screen resizing. I had to do a little bit of math there, but math is fun, so there's no problem there. Okay, that's basically all for the Rubiks Cube panel. And then our two big ones, Cube and Game UI. How I set up Cube was, okay, so this is stack I was telling you about that allows me to do the undo button. So every time I do a move, it'll record to stack, and when I want to undo things, it'll pop it from the stack, and it'll do the reverse operations, how it works. Okay, this is my double array representing all the faces on the cube. These represent which color they are, so if I do that, that will create a different color on that face. So whenever I manipulate it, it's messing with this two-dimensional array. And then I have, let's see, anything notable here. Loading in images. Nah, that's not too interesting. Twist. Okay, so this is activated by the game UI whenever it figures out that the user wants to do a particular action, and it says which axis it's twisting along, which index along the axis, so it's either 0, 1, or 2, and then clockwise or counterclockwise, and whether it wants to be added to stack or not. There are certain situations where I didn't want to add to stack. I don't remember when I don't want to. Oh yeah, rotate I didn't want to add to stack. Scramble I didn't want to add to stack. Well, I guess this is a twist, so when wouldn't I want to add twist to stack? I'm not really sure. Oh, I remember now. When I need to undo things, this method is called, even though the user doesn't do it. So in that case, when I want to undo things, I don't want that action to be added to stack. So that's why I have this as a parameter. I made this quick call method, which will, if you don't want to put true every time, you can just use this method, and then it'll put down true for you by default. Something I never done before. It's actually really useful. Okay, so adding a stack. That's just, I have a specific format for the T's for twist, axis, and then index, and yeah, it just has a specific format that's read and then parsed later on when it does undo method. Okay, so initialize variables. What is this? I actually haven't looked at this in a while. Okay, so face colors represents all the colors that are currently on the Rubik's Cube, and I create a temporary thing as a reference. So I'll be changing this around, but I'll reference a temporary one so that I know what it used to be. Okay, and then I go through all the logic here, which, is there anything interesting in here? This was just a kind of a pain, so I had to think, okay, if it's left axis, how does it work? This transform thing, how did I do that? Oh yes, I remember now. If you're working along left axis, then the faces that are affected are 4, 3, 1, and 2, and and I want the new transfer in that order. So what it does is it transfers the individual blocks from 4 to 3, then from 3 to 1, and then from 1 to 2, and then back 2 to 4. That's one of the things that I'm proud of, that this makes it work fairly smoothly. And then and this will transfer it between them. And then you can see here I just go from 0, then 1, 2, and 3. But for here it works a little bit differently. No, it doesn't work a little differently. How did I do this? Oh well, you kind of get the point. That's just a lot of work. These are the ones that they rotate through, and then that's that. And then I do a slightly different pattern of transferring the faces between, depending on which axis you used. And so that's twist. Rotate works a little bit easier but similar. Actually, rotate I just did the 3 twists. That's another case where I didn't want to add it to the stack. And then reset, scramble, reset, I just set it back to the good old standard format. So that one wasn't too bad. Scramble, I had it go through a bunch of twists. I had to go through 100 twists randomly chosen. So I had a random axis, random index, and the clockwise are also random. 100 was probably far too much. By the way, fun fact, do you know that within 20 moves you can get to any position on the Rubik's Cube? Which is pretty impressive, because I forget the exact number, but there's a ton of different moves you can use. And undo if the stack is not empty. Pop it from the stack, basically. And perform the reverse actions, also taking care of the undo. Drawing it, I have a debug mode where I draw it in a debug. And these will, or if it's not in debug mode, it'll draw the face like normal. So I highly recommend this practice. I set up a method draw face. I could have put all the code in here, but by setting this up, I make it a lot clearer. Like, you guys just looking at this can kind of see what's happening. First, I draw the background, which is just the black outline of the Rubik's Cube, and then I draw each of the 3 faces as visible. No problem there. So if we look in the draw face method, it how did I do this? So this I and J makes sure that I go through each one 3 times, and then draw block is another thing. But and then Y2 and X2 are the ones I'm currently drawing at. All right. A lot of times I make these the same, but it didn't work out that nicely in this case, because you can see it's not just the normal grid. It's the amount that it increments in the X and Y is kind of messy. So that's what this DXI, DXDYI, and so on, and that's what they're doing here. So that's how that works. Then in here it's calling the draw block. I'm breaking it down further by making more submethods. And here it basically, what did I do here? Ah, yes. I have 2 images saved. I have the one for the top and one for the sides. And so if it's one of the sides, I can draw it on, like one of the sides. If I'm draw it from the top, I can draw it on the top. And those files, let's see if I can find one of the files. Those files, the way they're set up is, where is it? Here it is. You see that the side face I have set up like that. So it's a grid, so it'll choose which one on the grid it wants to use. Same here. But this if statement is just to say which image it wants to use, and then it'll select from the grid using right here. Alright. And that's just a bunch of messy stuff. Game UI. So this took care of looking at all the mouse positions. So the main way I did this was I used this mouse above. So this would take 2 XY points, and you can sort of visualize it drawing a line, and this mouse above will return true or false whether or not the mouse was above or below that point. So I went through a series of lines, taking out the possibilities. So let's see, first I had one line drawn along vertically. I checked if it's left or right of that, and then I said, first, if it's left of this and it's below this line and it's above this line, go for this one. Else, if it's above this line, go for that one. Else, if it's above that line, go for that one. else that line, that one, else that line. So that was just, it was kind of a mess just going through all those, but it made it a lot easier. It made it a tedious job looking up all these points as opposed to a more difficult job having to come up with a more logical way of doing it. Or yes. So this mouse above, or not that one. This, what happened to mouse above? This was lifesaver right here, and I just used a little bit of math to find out what the equation of the line was, which is what I did, and then I did all logic here. That was for debugging a line. I used the mouse listener to figure out where the mouse was at any point in time. Oh, update mouse. This is what I was talking about, where it'll check where the mouse is, see if it's, so it says if mouse is less than, if mouse is in the correct X range, if it's in the correct domain, then if it's to the left of the center, to go through this, and they'll check mouse above each of these points, and they'll change the axis and index position for each one, and then that's just a big long mess right there. Let's collapse that. That's what update mouse does. And then, so this is for drawing, so I have draw arrow here, and it'll draw the different arrows depending on the position, and that's called from the whatever the draw event is. And then, which method is this, I wonder? Paint. How do I do that? Oh, I had a keyboard interface. I completely forgot to talk about that. Yes, when I was testing this, I didn't want to, this was before I set up the mouse, I set up a keyboard interface, so, okay, here we go. So I can select which axis I want to rotate along. Once I have that selected, I can select which index. So I have QWE lined up for each axis, and then I have UIO wired to the individual indexes. Okay, and then I can, with my pinky to the left my backspace, I can hit plus. Oh, I can hit plus. Nope. No, that's not. I can plus or minus to actually do the rotation. Plus or minus, plus minus, plus minus. Okay, and then I probably could have done the rotations just using the QWE and then plus minus, but the way I decided to end up doing that was I did 7, 8, 9. So 7 is that one. And I can do plus minus to rotate that one. 8 that one. 9 that one. So if you want to become a speed solver, you can use the keyboard. There you go. So I have a keyboard interface set up. I forgot to talk about that. Also, very proud of that. And another thing, nobody will even notice. My teacher probably didn't even see that in there. So yeah, this basically figures out which one needs to be painted based on our mouse index and all that. So the paint of the series if statement is checking if any of these need to be drawn. So reset position, fairly simple. Game UI. And that's how that works. That's most stuff I want to talk about. There's some stuff in here. Well, okay, I'll explain how I did the dynamic settings panel real quick. It was a relief that I didn't have to do this using an applet. That's the main reason I switched the program to a frame, because having set up all those buttons in applet would have been such a pain. But using swing makes it a lot easier. Let's see. You can format text with HTML inside a JButton, something I learned when I made this. Okay, so here I have all of the things I want, all of the different options. And then here I have a Boolean thing set up, which will say which of the options are in use. So at first the buttons that are in use are scramble, reset, options, and off. And then the labels that are in use are none of them. So you can see how I have that set up. So when our options thing is opened up, all it's doing is changing around these Booleans, which you can see right here in our options thing. It creates those Boolean arrays. Somewhere in here I load it. Yeah, I have add checkboxes, which will go through all the checkboxes, and it'll check them. Well, somewhere in here I load it. Bet you I do in the beginning of add checkboxes. That's probably how I do it. Yeah, I load it from the other class over here, from the settings panel class over here. And then what I do here, and then I add checkboxes for each one. That's how that works. And then once I hit confirm, which is the only thing that's confirm is the button, and that's the only thing that has button listener on it, so I don't have to worry about checking for which thing was pressed. And then, yep, I changed the Boolean for the settings panel once I click that button. And then in here, once that, what method was that again? It was set labels on, set buttons on. Okay, so somewhere here I have a method called set labels on, set buttons on. Somewhere. Here it is, set labels on, buttons on. Well, that just simply changes that. I thought it did more than that. Perhaps I didn't hear it. Oh yeah, I said put down reset layout. So I simply changed the variable in here using these variables, and then I did reset layout, which is up here. Okay, so first off, this is swing stuff that I hadn't really used before. So first off, I remove all the elements from the labels. I have a separate panel for labels, just so it's organized that way. So I remove all the elements, then I determine how the grid should be set up. Okay, then I basically count how many things need to be in each panel. Because I have the labels panel, then I have the buttons panel, so I count how many things need to be in each panel, and then I set up the panel using grid layout, and how many grids there are depends on how much I counted up here. And then I add everything, and we'll add labels, then add buttons, and I set visible true, and that's fairly easy. So that's all for this. I hope you found it somewhat interesting. If not, and you're still watching, I apologize. This is just something I wanted to do. I worked a long time on this, and I just kind of like to share with you guys what I've been working on. And hopefully you found it somewhat educational a little bit, because this is a fairly sizable project, and with big projects, what's interesting to me is that when people are making stuff like this, I guess the problem they have is when the wall they're hitting usually is not that they are incapable of coding things, that they don't have enough ability, that it's too abstract for them. It's that they don't properly organize it. Because you can see I have my organization scheme set up there, and there are things I could have done better, but I had a plan for organizing it, and a lot of the time when developing this was going back and reformatting things and doing that. But by spending time doing that, I'm able to keep track of everything that I'm doing, and then I can properly identify errors and then tackle them in turn. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of idea of how you can organize things, like the trick I showed you about creating other methods, so that you can so you don't have one big clump of code, and also several classes. Yeah, so that's that. One thing I wish I had done differently was that I created a resources class. So if you look here, when I wanted to change something about this cube, I had to I'd have game UI call Rubiks cube panel, and then I have to get the cube variable from Rubiks cube panel. So I have to go up this tree and then down there if I want to make changes to it. Or still, if I had the scramble from settings panel, the way that would work is I had to go up to Rubiks cube, down to Rubiks cube panel, and then down to cube to make changes. So by having a static resources class, you can just say resources.cube.twist without having to go up the tree and down the tree. And this was actually a fairly small tree hierarchy. It could be a lot bigger, in which case it would have really been a pain without a resources class. So I have a resources class in my iRevolver game, and now I know why. So that's that. Anything else I want to say? Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.